In late 2023, South Africa filed a case at the International Court of Justice in The Hague, accusing Israel of violating its obligations under the 1948 Genocide Convention. Israel, which has been bombing Gaza since October 2023, is being accused of failing to prevent genocide in the region. In May, the UN's top court issued a preliminary order instructing Israel to halt its military offensive in the southern Gaza city of Rafah. This decision aimed to reduce the mounting death toll and ease the humanitarian crisis in the besieged enclave, where casualties have exceeded 42,000. But what does this case mean in the broader context of international law? To understand the significance of this legal move, it's important to explore the relevance of the 1948 Genocide Convention.
So, South Africa has brought a case before the International Court of Justice alleging that Israel has committed genocide. When they brought the case, which was shortly after October 7th and after Israel's military operation commenced, I did not agree that what was happening was genocide. I thought it was very likely that we wouldn't have a finding of genocide. The ICJ said in January of 2024 that there is a plausible risk that genocide is occurring in Gaza. And it effectively put every state on notice to the fact that there is a potential genocide which could be occurring, and that it would decide whether there was a genocide when it listened to the merits of the case. The merits of the case are probably going to take about 10 years for us to figure out. That is how long it took before, when they decided in Bosnia versus Serbia that there was a genocide occurring in Srebrenica. They also said that Israel had to allow in humanitarian aid. Now, as of March of this year, I decided, in my personal opinion, that this was a genocide because of the fact that you didn't have humanitarian aid coming in. The definition of genocide is the destruction in whole or in part of a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. And I believe that as of March, potentially Israel was committing a genocide in Gaza because it was deliberately inflicting upon the Gazans conditions of life calculated to bring about their physical destruction through the fact that it was starving them to death, essentially.
Moreover, several countries have joined South Africa's case against Israel, making it a collective international legal action. Nicaragua applied to join on February 8, followed by Belgium, Ireland, and Colombia in the months after. By mid 2023, countries like Turkey, Libya, Egypt, and the Maldives had also expressed their intent to participate. In June, nations like Mexico, Chile, Palestine, Spain, and Cuba joined the growing list of supporters, with the Maldives reiterating its declaration in October.
So we've had a number of states file declarations to intervene. We've also had this before when it came to Russia and Ukraine. We had a record number of states there, perhaps up to about 25 states intervening, saying what they thought before the court. The court will decide on the law. It will decide based on international law. It will take into account what states have submitted. So in this current case, we have a number of states, and we can see their legal submissions to it, where they have argued in certain ways that why they believe what is occurring is a genocide. Interestingly enough, we also had in another case, which is also running in parallel to this, that the ICJ is deciding on genocide, is that brought by the Gambia against Myanmar. And in that case, you had Western states, including the UK, Germany, Netherlands, argue that you couldn't have a threshold for genocide which was so high that it could never be met. A pattern of conduct which indicated that intent was genocidal would be enough for you to satisfy the requirements of genocide. So interestingly, those states are probably going to take a very, very different approach here, but they have already submitted that declaration in the Gambia versus Myanmar. And so it will be interesting to see what the court will do with it. It doesn't always follow the interventions. It will decide on its own, but these are helpful in that it shows what states believe genocide to be.
Beyond the legal implications, this case also raises critical questions about the humanitarian crisis unfolding in Gaza.
The case is going to be very symbolic in nature in terms of whether it will offer relief to Palestinians right now. The provisional orders do. So the case itself, the merits will be decided in about 10 years. But in the meantime, they have given an injunction saying that they ordered a geographically limited ceasefire when it came to the Rafah offensive. They've ordered a number of things, including the fact that you have to have journalists going in. You have to also allow in humanitarian aid. So these provisional orders, these injunctions that are given by the court, are the ones that are going to be, hopefully provide some relief to the suffering. Of course, Israel has not complied with these. Of course, we have not had a Security Council resolution ordering that Israel comply with the ICJ's orders because the US has vetoed that. So in terms of what the court can do, it is doing really all it can, especially because it has a number of other cases that have run in parallel, including the advisory opinion where they ruled that Israel's occupation was unlawful. But essentially, the role of international law now, we're really, really seeing it come up against its limits in the sense of how much it can constrain state behavior when they are supported by powerful states. And in conclusion, it's not much.
As the world watches, the potential outcomes of this case would shape not only the future of Gaza, but also international accountability for war crimes and violations of human rights.
In terms of the larger diplomatic consequences, we are seeing Israel now push on into Lebanon. It is enhancing what I would call its living room, as a throwback to Laban's round, that they are doing that in Lebanon. They are trying to they've decapitated Hezbollah, and they're also trying to goad the US into a war, into helping it in a war with Iran. They're very, very happy right now because of the Iranian strikes. It gives them an excuse for engaging in a full-out war with Iran, and they want regime change. So we have seen many ministers come out. They're basically rubbing their hands with glee at the prospect of going to war with Iran, which is something that they have wanted since at least 2003, when the US invaded Iraq. There, the Israel lobby was very strong in America, saying that we should now go to war with Iran. The US largely ignored that, and even in the course of the last year, it has really, really tried to de-escalate tensions between Israel and Iran. It seems unlikely now that Israel will allow that, given Iran's response against the Hania and Nasrallah assassinations. But really, that is what Israel wants. In terms of diplomatic negotiations, the US is supporting Israel. It may not support it in a full-out war with Iran because it still does not want that. But let's see what happens in terms of how much Biden can constrain Netanyahu, because we haven't seen that at all. The Americans do seem to not want it to go beyond the Gaza Strip. But the Arab countries have been also completely impotent. They are more than happy. The Gulf states, especially, they're more than happy to see Israel try and take out Iran. Nothing would really make them happier. The rest of the Muslim world is silent. So in terms of diplomatic damage to this, we are also seeing that China and Russia, while they are rising, they're not getting involved in this conflict. Multipolarity hasn't got to the point yet that China and Russia would ever want to get involved in Palestine. So largely, we're going to see nothing but more of the same.